Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Yashoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari 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 Jai Sri Sri Radha Kunja Bihari ki jai. Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Jai Sisi Gaur Nitaya Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayo Mudirayet Nashtapraye Swabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Yanandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Sri Gurun Dinatarinam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanang pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we're continuing our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Fifth Canto. And this is chapter 2. And we're going to be studying the first few chapters. So Srila Prabhupada remarked that this part of the fifth canto was the most difficult for him to translate because it's very technical, it's very scientific, very full of physics and movements of the different planets and everything. So he told us that he prayed to Krishna, please allow me to understand this so I can translate it properly. So Prabhupada took a very humble position here on the fifth canto. So we've just finished chapter 20 of the fifth canto, which is the structure of the universe. The structure is very scientific. And now in chapter 21, we're going to discuss the movements of the sun. First, the structure of the universe, and then the movements of the sun. And most devotees means 99.99%, were brought up in the education system, the adharmic education system, the slaughterhouse of the soul education system, to believe a certain perspective about the sun and the structure of the universe. However, in this Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the fifth canto, has nothing to do with what the so-called conditioned souls scientists are telling us is the structure of the universe. This is a completely different structure. And the fact that this was so different than what devotees had grown up to believe, what they were taught in school, caused some distress amongst some of the devotees and some doubts. And I remember when I was traveling from America to India, so on my way, I stopped in London and spent a couple of weeks in London. And I remember speaking to one of my godbrothers, very nice devotee, and Bhumadev, his name was. He said to me, what do you think of the fifth canto? Because it was very controversial in 1975, very controversial. So what do you think of the fifth canto? So I said, well, you know, I'm a new devotee, and I don't have that much spiritual understanding, but I believe that in the future, I will have a lot more spiritual understanding. So what I don't understand now, I will understand later in the future. And he looked at me and said, me too. He also felt like that. He also felt like that we don't want to rush to judgment like some devotees were doing. And we'll wait, become mature in spiritual life, and we'll have a much better understanding. So now, there are many groups in ISKCON who are studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, fifth canto, trying to understand how the structure of the universe is according to Shukdev Goswami's version here in Bhagavatam. And so different groups are analyzing and coming up with different perspectives. And one final perspective has not yet been decided upon. No one is really sure 100% that this is the right structure or this is the right structure, because Prabhupada wanted us to present this structure in the TOVP, the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. So they began the construction and the collection for the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium, hoping that the devotees would figure out the fifth canto structure of the universe, so that when the temple was ready, they could just put it the way everyone understood it. But right now, even though the temple is almost complete, still no one has an idea. And there are certain things that we do have good ideas about, but this chapter, the movements of the sun, was the most difficult. So let's see what Srila Prabhupada says here in his introduction to the chapter, and then we'll look at the first few shlokas. The movements of the sun. This chapter informs us of the movements of the sun. The sun is not stationary. It is also moving like the other planets. So the sun is moving like the other planets. The earth is stationary. Now, what we consider the earth what you're taught in school to be considered the earth is not what Sukadeva Goswami considers to be the earth. Sukadeva Goswami considers the earth to be Bhumandala, which stretches out to the edges of the universe almost completely, not exactly, but almost completely. And in the center of Bhumandala is Mount Meru. And then there are different deeps. There's the saltwater ocean, the milk ocean, the ghee ocean, like so many different dweeps, Plaksha dweep, this dweep, that dweep. So completely different. It's not a round ball like the planets, the other planets, for example. So there's Navagraha, 9 planets. Earth is not one of the Navagraha. But in science, they're considering it to be, but not in the Vedic conception. Earth is Bhumandala. So in the early days, when Prabhupada was translating this, and he was having the artists paint pictures, make paintings of the Leelas. So in the earlier canto, when they were describing the appearance of Varaha avatar fighting with Hiranyaksha, and the Bhumandala fell into the Garbhodak ocean, and Lord Varahadev picked it up with his tusks. So they drew the earth the way the scientists told them. It was a small ball. But when you look at the ancient drawings of the Acharyas, the earth is Bhumandala. It's a flat plane. It's not a round ball. So this has caused some discussion and some arguments and some misunderstandings and some hurt feelings and heavy arguments amongst some devotees. So we have a choice. We can either take the version of Sukadeva Goswami or we can take the version of the scientists. We cannot study on our own. We don't have the telescopes. We don't have the understanding to study the structure of the universe on our own and come to a conclusion. Therefore, we have to take shelter of either one version or another version. So which version should we take shelter of? Which version do we believe in? The scientific version, which is manufactured by conditioned souls with 4 defects, imperfect senses, cheating propensity, and so many other defects, or of the Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Sukadeva Goswami. So everyone has their choice. They can choose who they want to take shelter of. So I'm taking shelter of Sukadeva Goswami, and so is Prabhupada. So we'll discuss it like that. So the sun's movements determine the duration of night and day. When the sun travels north of the equator, it moves slowly during the day and very quickly at night, thus increasing the duration of the daytime and decreasing the duration of night. Similarly, when the sun travels south of the equator, the exact opposite is true. The duration of the day decreases and the duration of night increases. When the sun enters Karkat Rashi, which is Cancer, and then travels to Simha Rasi, Leo, and on through Dhanu Rashi, Sagittarius, the course is called Dakshinayana, the southern way. And when the sun enters Makara Rashi, Capricorn, and thereafter travels through Kumbha Rashi, Aquarius, and on through Mithun Rashi, Gemini, its course is called Uttarayana, the northern way. When the sun is in Mesha Rashi, Aries, and Tula Rashi, Libra, the duration of day and night are equal. So I'm just going to make a little comment here, because many of our my God brothers, have been studying and trying to understand exactly the structure of the universe for the TOVP. And I might also add the reason that I wrote my book, Cosmology on Trial, and the second book, Stephen Hawking on Trial, is to show that today's modern science is not scientific. It's also based on belief. They have no idea what gravity is, what kind of force it is. They have no idea where it's located. They know how to measure its effects, but they don't know what it is, and they don't know where it's located. This they don't tell you in school. And Newton, Isaac Newton, who discovered, or not discovered, who first became aware of this force and wrote mathematical equations to it, he also admitted we don't know where it's located, and we don't know what kind of a force it is, but we do know that we can track its movements, and we can track its movements through mathematics. So the sun is, we're taught by the scientists that there are so many suns, that every star is a sun. But according to the Bhagavatam, there's only one sun. The sun we see is the sun, and the stars are like moons. They're reflecting the light. So that's a completely different perspective. So I don't know which is true. I can't do a scientific study. I can't analyze. I can't come up with a thesis to say which is true. I have to just accept one or the other. Who am I going to put my faith in? The conditioned, sold, sense-gratifying scientists, or the pure devotee Vaishnavas? So I made my choice, my decision. So I live in Sri Vrindavan Dham, and we have a terrace in where we live, and I go up on the terrace in the morning to chant japa, and then I watch the sun rising every day, and I see how the sun moves, because I stand in one particular place for a perspective, and I see how the sun moves this way and how it moves that way. I see how it goes to Uttarayana, and Dakshinayana. And I see when it's exactly in Tula Rashi and Mesha Rashi. So I see that. So this is explained in the Bhagavatam, that the sun is moving in a northerly direction or southerly direction on the mountain known as, what's it called? Yeah, Manasotra. I forgot for a minute. At my age, all the synapses don't always click in the brain. So I saw that, so I could see. So I knew on which day it was exactly east. The sun rises exactly east only on 2 days in the whole year. The rest of it in Dakshinayana is rising southeast, more southeast, south-southeast, and then it comes back, hits east, and then goes northeast, northeast, north-northeast, like that, and then it comes back. So I was doing a scientific study, very simple scientific study, by watching the sun every morning, seeing where it rises, and tracking its movements in relationship to other fixed buildings there in Vrindavan. So I have understood clearly the movements of the sun in terms of Uttarayana and Dakshinayana, and east and southeast and northeast. So here Prabhupada continues on the second paragraph. On Manasottara mountain are the abodes of 4 demigods. East of Sumera mountain is Devadhani, where King Indra lives. And south of Sumeru is Samyamani, the abode of Yamraj, the superintendent of death. Similarly, west of Sumeru is Nimlochani, the abode of Varuna, the demigod who controls the water. And north of Sumeru is Vibhavati, where the demigod of the moon lives. Chandrama, We say Chandrama because the moon is feminine. And we see the moon as our mother. So every Vedic astrologer doesn't say Chandra, but says Chandrama. Understand? So we have a different conception of the moon and the sun. In terms of distance, we have a different conception also than the scientists. They say the moon is very close and the sun is very far. We say the sun is closer and the moon is further. So who are you going to believe? Where will you put your faith? And what difference does it make in my going back home, back to Godhead? And what difference does it make in Krishna Prema blossoming in my heart? Nothing. So why even is Parikshit Maharaj asking about this, and Shukdev Goswami taking so much time explaining this in great detail, when Parikshit Maharaj only has 7 days to live, and already he's coming on the 4th day. 3 days have gone already. So why is he asking about this material structure? Why is he interested in this? Who knows the answer?
Because he understands that the creation is non-different from the Supreme Lord, and he sees the hand of the Lord behind the creation.
Yeah, because the Lord created the material world and the spiritual world. So this is a creation of the Lord. Just like the potter. The Vedic analogy is the potter spins on his wheel and he makes pots. But the potter is different than the pot. The Mayavadis say that the pot and the potter are the same, no difference. Everything is one. All is one. No, anyway, nobody laughed, but that's a joke. So Maharaj Parikshit is interested because this is a creation of the Lord. How did the Lord do this? What is the structure? My Lord, he's so amazing. Just like in that Leela, where Narada Muni has visited a place and he spoke to a Brahmana and he spoke to a cobbler. And they were both, Narada Muni, they're offering their obeisances. So nice to see you. Please accept my Dandavat Pranam. And where are you going? He says, I'm going to see Narayan. You're going to see Narayan? Oh, please offer my Dandavat Pranams to Narayan. So both the Brahmana and the cobbler said like that. So then Narada Muni went to see Narayan. And Narayan asked, where you have just come from? I came from this one village. Before I came, I was speaking to one Brahmana and one cobbler. Oh, so nice. And they asked me that when I return, please let me know what Narayan was doing when you were there and you saw him. So Narayan said, well, just tell them that when you saw me, I was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. Narada Muni said, okay. So after he left, he went back and met the Brahmana again. Oh, Narada Muni, Dandavat Pranam, you come back. How is Narayan? Everything is fine. He gave his blessings to you. I'm so fortunate. What was Narayan doing when you were there? He was putting an elephant through the eye of a needle. Oh, Narada Muni, you are always joking with me. Never get straight answer. Oh, so funny. Narayan putting elephant through eye of needle. Oh. Then he went to the cobbler and he was thinking, wow, I wonder what the cobbler's going to say. Cobbler is the shoewala. So the cobbler offered Dandavat Pranams and he asked, you saw Narayan? What was he doing? He was putting an elephant through the eye of a needle. Really? Yes. Oh, my Narayan, he's so amazing. He's Sarva Shaktiman. He can do anything. This is so wonderful. And so in this way, Narayan could understand that the cobbler was the real bhakta. So in this case here, we have the Brahmins, the so-called Brahmins, the Kali Yuga Brahmins, the scientists who tell us the structure of the universe, and we have the cobbler Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord, and they have their faith and their perception of the structure of the universe. So it's an analogous situation. So for the Vaishnavas, we just say, wow, it's amazing how the Lord is doing this. Makes no sense to us, but he has superior intelligence. And one thing Prabhupada taught me, he said that when we're discussing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have to accept one thing, that his intelligence is so far greater than ours that we can barely understand or conceive of him because he is achintya. Just like, I'll give you an example. Supposing an ant was to walk on this page of the Bhagavatam, what would he see? What would he see? He wouldn't see anything. He has antenna. He can't even see. He wouldn't understand anything. If he could see, all he would see was black and white. We open up the Bhagavatam, we read, we get Brahma Vidya, Atma Gyan. We get the tattva of Bhakti Yoga. So the difference between us and an ant, compared to the difference between us and Krishna, the difference between us and an ant is hardly anything. And the difference between us and Krishna is infinite. Therefore, Prabhupada said, when we understand and totally realize that Krishna and Krishna Tattva is achintya, then we just have to accept the teachings of the Acharyas and the Shastras. We can't understand it on our own intelligence. And he said the Mayavadis and other people, they try to bring Krishna down, 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 down to the level of their own intelligence and then try to understand him this way. Which is exactly what they're doing with the structure of the universe. They're bringing it down, 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 down to the level of their sense perception and intelligence, pratyaksha, and they're coming up with some structure of the universe. So I wrote this book, Cosmology on Trial and Stephen Hawking on Trial, to show that they have no real proof of anything that they say. It's all mythology. Because it really is. Yeah, read my books and you'll see for yourself. And because people will come to the TOVP and they'll think, oh, this is nice, but it's only mythology. Oh, here, read this book, Cosmology on Trial. You'll see it's the exact same thing. They don't have any idea how far any of these things are. It's based on what's called a redshift. Anybody studied physics here? So few of you know what a redshift is. So you take the light coming from the sun through a prism and you get the colors of the rainbow. And sometimes the red, it shifts one way, further away from all the other colors. And in other situations, the blue color shifts the opposite way. So they didn't know what it meant. But then someone came up with an idea, well, it must relate to distance. First, they related it to sound. They tried to relate it to different things. Then they related it to distance. So a red shift this way means it's further away, and a blue shift this way means it's closer. But then there were other scientists that said, well, look, this galaxy over here that you say is redshifted and is so far away, right beside it is a, what's that other body called, full of light? What? Quasar. Quasar. The quasar is right next to it, and it's much closer. And they're in the exact, they're exactly the same distance. So the redshift does not prove distance. One scientist wrote a book called Seeing Red. It was all about the redshift, his whole book. And because he didn't accept the scientific conclusion that it's about distance, the scientific community banned this scientist from using any telescopes. They took away his telescope time. So the scientific community, they're a bunch of fanatics also. You don't agree to the narrative, then we kick you out. This is the way it is. But he proved that it's not based on distance. So I bring so many different points up in my book. That's one of them. The other one is like the Big Bang. What happened at t equals 0? So there's many questions you can ask them, and they have no answers for. That before the Big Bang, that singularity that existed, where was it located? And how long was it existing in its state before it exploded? And what caused it to explode? And if the universe is now expanding and it's infinite, then it also must be infinite in its state as a pinpoint of a singularity, because you can't go from the finite to the infinite. You're either always infinite or always finite. They can't answer those questions. What happened before the Big Bang? How did the singularity get there? They have no idea. You have to have blind faith to accept the Big Bang theory. Same as people say you have to have blind faith to accept God. Here you now have blind faith to accept the singularity, how it got there, how it exploded. There's one difference, though. Our experience with God is not blind faith. The theory of the singularity is totally blind faith. But why is our conception, our theory of God, not blind faith? The answer is because we can enter into a relationship with God, and He can reciprocate with us, and we can see His hand in our life. He guides us. He protects us. Now the scientists say, but I don't experience that. I don't have no experience of God. And then we tell them why. Yeyatamam prapajante tamstataiva bhajamyaham, because you make no, you never approach the Lord. You make no attempt to establish a relationship, so He remains aloof. That's why you don't have any relationship. It's just the same as a young, beautiful young lady who's marriageable age. There may be many young men who are interested to marry this woman. But she will choose only one man. All the other men will not be able to understand who she is, what her belief is, what her inner feelings are. No one else will be able to understand. Only the person to whom she reveals her heart to. Correct? And the same with God. The only people who understand God are those persons who Krishna reveals His heart to, and those are the devotees. It's a heart-to-heart loving relationship. So we really have to establish our loving relationship with Krishna. Then our God consciousness and our conception of God is not blind faith like the scientific conception of the singularity is blind faith, but this is experiential. We can experience God in our life. It's a relationship. No one else can experience the relationship with that woman, only the man that she marries and her husband, no one else. So it's the same with Krishna. He chooses who He will reveal Himself to and who He will not. Understood? Clear? So then Prabhupada continues here. The sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight occur in all these places because of the movements of the sun. Diametrically opposite the place where the sunrise takes place and the sun is seen in human eyes, the sun will be setting and passing away from human vision. Similarly, the people residing diametrically opposite the point where it is hidden, where it is midday, will be experiencing midnight. The sun rises and sets with all the other planets, headed by the moon and other luminaries. So the sun is traveling around Bhumandala, but in the middle is Sumeru, a huge mountain. So when the sun is this way, Sumeru is blocking it, so it's night for the people on this side of the Bhumandala. And when the sun comes to this side, there's day here and night on this side of Bhumandala. Now here we also experience day and night, but where's in Sumeru? There is no Mount Sumeru. It's a whole different conception. So what we experience by pratyaksha, now we will try to understand how day and night comes. So the Vedic understanding is this way. They have a model, and it works. Follow the Vedic model, you get day and night. It works perfectly. Now the scientists, they also have a model, and their model also works perfectly. You get day and night. The Vedic model, you can predict the future. Just like astrology, we can predict when there's going to be eclipses, when there's going to be this or that. And scientific model, they can also predict. So you can come up with your own model, and if it fits all the criteria, then you have a new model to explain night and day. So there may be so many different models that will fit the night and day paradigm. How do we know which is the correct one? Because here we have scientific one works, Vedic one works. This one predicts the future, this one predicts the future. This one predicts the eclipses, this predicts the eclipses. It matches in all respects, but they're totally different models. How do we know which is the right one? Where do you put your faith? In Shastra. Clear? Okay. Now the entire Kala Chakra, which is the zodiac, or the wheel of time, is established on the wheel of the sun god's chariot. So now we're getting a totally different conception, a wheel on the chariot of Vivaswan. Scientists, they think this is mythology. But in my book, I prove that their system is total mythology also. This wheel is known as Samvatsara. The 7 horses pulling the chariot of the sun are known as Gayatri, Brihati, Ushnik, Jagati, Trishtup, Anustup, and Pankti. These are the 7 horses of the chariot of Vivaswan that goes around Manasodara mountain. Scientists, they don't have any explanation like this. Horses, names. So it's very detailed explanation that Sukadeva Goswami is giving. Very detailed. Then Prabhupada continues that these horses are harnessed by a demigod known as Arunadev to a yoke which is 900,000 yojanas wide. Sounds fantastic. And it is fantastic because Krishna is a fantastic creator. Look what Krishna has created. I cut my finger. Blood comes out. I wait a few hours, the blood stops, it begins to heal. And the next day, the healing is about 50% done. The second day, 75% done. The 4th day, you can't even see that there's a cut anymore. This body heals itself. This is the creation of Krishna. Now this body is actually a robot, or it's a vehicle for the Atma, the driver. But look at this, the bot that Krishna has created. It heals itself. It has an immune system, defends itself. It digests food. It does all kinds of things. And look at the scientists' robots, what they can do. In comparison, nothing. In comparison, very elementary. But they're so puffed up, they're thinking, now we are greater than God. They're actually thinking like that. And Krishna says, ahankara vimudatma, that one becomes puffed up with ahankara, with false ego, then the atma becomes like a muda. But not an ordinary muda, but a vimuda, the biggest muda of all the mudas. The biggest ass of all the asses. In Bangla, we have this animal called gada, carries load, also in Hindi. So the scientists are just the biggest gada. So Arunadev, he harnesses the horses to a yoke. And then the chariot carries Aditya Deva, the sun god. Of course, the sun god has different names. Aditya Deva, Surya Narayan, Vivasvan, so many different names. Always staying in front of the sun god and offering their prayers are 60,000 sages known as Valikilyas. 60,000 sages are moving around the Valikilyas. This is amazing. No one can come up with such an idea unless they're Krishna. Krishna has arranged this amazing thing that people will say, it can't be, it's impossible. And he does it because Krishna has a sense of humor. He likes to do things in such a way that the atheists scratch their heads and say, it's not possible. Like, oh, Narad, you were telling big joke, But he does things in such a way that the Vaishnavas say, oh my Lord, he is so amazing. He can do anything. Look at how amazing he's doing these things. So the Vaikilyas are there. The Valikilyas, 60,000 of them, offering prayers to the sun god as the sun chariot travels around Mount Meru, known as Sumeru, the mountain of gold, which is upside down, narrow at the bottom and wide at the top, which, according to physics, couldn't stand. A pyramid is the opposite. So this is an inverted pyramid. So Krishna likes to play tricks with the materialistic men. Yeah, I'm going to do it this way, so they're going to say it's impossible. And then Krishna laughs. It's a big joke. Damodar Leela, for example, he's always playing pranks on Krishna, on Mother Yashoda. Makan Chor, he's always stealing the makan. He's feeding it to the monkeys. He's always playing tricks on the gopis. So this is Krishna. He has a sense of humor. But he's an amazing artist, amazing creator. Okay, so that's the Valikilyas. Then there are 14 Gandharvas, Apsaras, and other Devatas who are divided into 7 parties and who perform ritualistic activities every month to worship the super soul through the sun god according to different names. So we have Gandharvas and Apsaras. The Gandharvas are singing, the Apsaras are dancing. So it's something very festive. It's a festival. The sun traveling around the universe, it's a huge festival. The scientists, they can't grasp such a thing. So then Prabhupada says, thus, which means therefore, the sun god travels through the universe for a distance of 95,100,000 yojanas, which is equivalent to 760,800,000 miles. at a speed of 16,004 miles at every moment. Fast. 16,000 miles in one moment. And while that's going on, the Malikilyas are doing puja, and the Gandharvas are singing, the Apsaras are dancing. So it's no wonder that the materialistic people think this is just mythology. It couldn't possibly be true. And when the British came to India and they arranged for translations of the Shastra because they wanted to understand the mentality and the mind of the Hindus that they were governing. And they read this thing and they thought, oh my God, these people are completely nuts. And so they taught in the school that the Indian conception was childish and the British had a much higher culture in learning and education. And they brainwashed the Indian people, and there were many Indian people who believed it. Those were the Gnostic Indian people who were faithless anyway. Now the British came along, and so they went along with the British. I met a man in 1976 in Calcutta. I was out doing my japa, and I met this man. He came up to me, offered his pranams. He was, because I'm wearing saffron brahmachari, chanting japa, and he could see that I had taken up this path of spiritual life, and he asked me, "Have you attained peace of mind?" That was his question. Have you attained peace of mind? So on the side of the road, there were people sleeping, other people taking baths because they lived on the street. And I said to him, how can you have peace of mind when you see people living in such dire conditions and you do nothing to help them? He was shocked. Didn't have an answer, couldn't say anything. They think you have peace of mind, and the hell with anybody else. Who cares what happens to them? That's their conception. But the Vaishnava, he's para upakar. He's concerned for the welfare of others. How can I help others? How can I benefit others? That's the difference between the karmis, the faithless, and the bhaktas, the yogis, the devotees. So then he said to me, India is in a dire condition. When I pointed out how people were living on the street, bathing in the street, begging for food. And he said, we were much better off under the British. That's what he said. We were much better off under the British. He thought like that. He was convinced. So anyway, here Prabhupada has given us an overview of this chapter entitled The Movements of the Sun. And so we're going to be reading and studying this in the following days. It's going to be completely different than what you've grown up to learn as a child in the education system of the atheists, the Gnostic Lok, the scientists. In other words, the conditioned souls who have 4 defects. What are those 4 defects? Number 1, imperfect senses. Number 2, you're all at the same, one at a time. They're in illusion. Number 3, they make mistakes. And number 4, they have the cheating propensity. How can you take shelter of such people? Tell me. How can you take shelter of such people? And we take shelter of the acharyas, who are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. and who dedicate their lives for the benefit of others. They're worthy of taking shelter of. These conditioned scientists, they're not worthy of taking shelter of. They're not worthy of believing what they say. They have a model, and the model works, but we also have a model, and our model works. And our model is thousands of years old. Yours is a new model, and you're refining it every day. What you believed 100 years ago, you don't believe anymore. Do you know that 100 years ago, at the time of Einstein, they were teaching that what we know, what the scientists tell us today is the Milky Way galaxy? They were teaching that that was the entire universe. Then later on, with the improvement in their telescopes, oh, it's not the entire universe. There are other galaxies. Okay, well, we change our mind on that one. And I reveal in my book the history of how it keeps revising, and I make a point that what we knew 50 years ago, I give an example from my own life in my book, that 50 years ago on my physics exam, I answered the questions and I got a good mark, I passed. And I said, but if I give those same answers today, I would fail. And 50 years in the future, if I give today's answers, I would fail because it would be revised again. New data. So let's take our shelter of the tried and true over millennia, over thousands and thousands of years. Thank you very much. So are there any questions? Here's a question.
Your book Cosmology is available?
They were selling it in Mayapur, but it's easier to download it from Amazon. You get a Kindle, a digital version, and it's cheaper also. The printing is expensive. You can download it cheap for like $3 or $4, which is like, 200-300 rupees. Cosmology on Trial, with my legal name, Pierre St. Clair. But just look for Cosmology on Trial.
BI also is publishing similar.
Sorry?
BI also is working on such kind of books, right? Such kind of BI,
The
Bhaktivedanta
BI
institutes. Yeah.
The BI is working on what?
In such similar projects, Prabhuji, is it?
Well, I already published my book in 2014. They're a little late. It's been selling for, 8 years already, my book, Cosmology on Trial. And it was doing quite well in the beginning. Now it's been 8 years since I published it, so most people have read it, so it's not as high in the charts anymore, but it was very high in the charts back then. But they're keeping it at the TOVP to distribute to people who say that, oh, this is mythology here, read this book about science, about modern cosmology. And then I did another one, Stephen Hawking on Trial. Everything he said, he was considered to be the topmost physicist. I show that everything he said is complete conjecture, speculation. He has nothing solid. Nothing. Zero. So because he has nothing zero, it's not real mathematical physics. He calls it philosophical physics. Gives it a different name. So we can philosophize, we can speculate. So the latest theories are there, and they keep evolving and changing.
How you wrote, Prabhuji, these books? You had to go through the modern science, everything, and refute.
How did I write that book? I don't know how I first came up with the idea. I can't remember how I came up with the idea, but I knew that the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium, people were going to say was mythology. This isn't real. They were going to have, because all their faith would be in the scientific version. So I started to do some research, and I found different writers from Christian background and other backgrounds, finding faults with the scientific thing. So then I decided I would write my book, and I did all kinds of research, but not from I didn't quote the religious people who were finding fault with science, because then they would just say this is a religious thing, it has nothing to do with science. So I only quoted real scientists. So there's nothing from the Bhagavatam, nothing from the Bible, nothing from the Quran. It's all just straight science, mathematics. And I also prove how mathematics can tell the truth, but it can also tell lies. I can show you a formula that if you're walking and someone has a gun and they shoot that bullet, that you follow this formula, it never hits you. T equals 1 over n to 1 to infinity, but you never reach infinity, so the bullet never hits you. And anybody who knows mathematics, you can understand that. But that's bogus. So you can use formulas in mathematics to present lies also, as well as truths. So we can't really depend on mathematics. I did good in mathematics in school. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I have two specific questions, Prabhuji, in two different domains. First one is about the sun and the Bhumandala, Prabhuji. The sun and the Bhumandala. So, like when I was in school, I was taught that there is solar system and there is sun in the middle, and Earth is revolving around sun and it's rotating at the same
That's
time.
what they teach you, but that's not what Shukadeva Goswami is teaching.
So, Prabhuji, my question is, like, sun is moving here, right? So, Vivaswan is moving on his chariot. So, is it with respect to Earth or Bhumandala?
With respect to Earth, it's moving, and Earth is stationary.
That means Earth is stationary.
Earth is Bhumandala. It's not a graha. It's not a round planet. You have to get that out of your mind. Earth is Bhumandala. So when Shukadeva Goswami says Bhumandala, he's referring to the earth that we live on. And we don't live on a graha that's round and goes in an orbit. Okay?
So, Prabhuji, may I
We
ask,
don't have that conception.
what does Bhumandala consist of, Prabhuji? So, like,
Sorry?
what does Bhumandala consist of, Prabhuji? But like, we say that,
Bhumandala is stationary, it's not moving. Everything else is moving in relation to us. We're stationary.
and how does it connect to solar system, Prabhuji?
There is no solar system. What they call the solar system is just what we call the grahas, and they're moving according to the demigods, the devatas who are in control of those planets. And they come up with a system, let's call it a solar system, because solar means the sun, and they go around the sun. And, you know, they just came up with their speculation. Do anybody ever notice that if you watch on the television, they show that how the rockets go to the moon? Anybody ever notice if you're going to go up, you go like this, right? You ever notice that the rockets go this way, sideways? They don't go up, they go sideways. Where are they going? Okay, so now you don't worry about these things, about the structure of the universe, because it has nothing to do with you going back home, back to Godhead. Has nothing to do with Krishna Kripa coming to you. Has nothing to do with purification of your heart and that Krishna Prema bursts forth in divine seva to Krishna. So, but Maharaj Parikshit wanted to know because he loves Krishna and how Krishna created everything, so he asked. Just out of curiosity. It's all it is, just curiosity. But we should take shelter of Lord Nrsingadev, because Lord Nrsingadev is another avatar that the scientists would say is completely pure mythology. How you can have half man, half lion with 10 arms. I mean, they can't believe such things. But we believe it. Why do we believe it? 2 reasons. Number 1, we have andhabishas, blind faith. We don't know, but we would rather believe this than believe the scientists, because the acharyas are pure, they're unmotivated, they actually care for our welfare, and the scientists don't. The scientists are eating gomata, for example. How you can take shelter of someone who eats gomata? Not only that, but they eat the sukarupa. They eat anything. Prabhupada said there are some people who eat everything that flies in the air except the kite. Everything that's in the sea except the boat. And everything on the land except the bicycle. Otherwise, they eat everything else. So we have discrimination. So Lord Nrsingadev, we just celebrated his appearance. But what we celebrated, his appearance, is a theoretical appearance, a shastric appearance. And we celebrate that appearance. We didn't see Lord Nrsingadev. We didn't offer something to him and he thanked us. We didn't put a garland on his neck like Prahlad Maharaj did. It was a theoretical thing based on our Shraddha. But what we want actually is a practical Jayanti, Narasingha Jayanti. We want the Lord to appear in our heart. So let this Narasingha Jayanti be the appearance of the Lord in our heart. And how can we do that? Because where is your heart? Home is where your heart is. Home is where your loved ones are. So we want to see the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev in our home so that we can do puja to him. So here, this book, there are 108 murtis of Sri Narasingha. And Prabhupada taught us in the early days that the picture of the Lord is the same as the murti of the Lord. The sound of the Lord's name is the same as the Lord himself. So we have the Archa Vigraha, the murti incarnation. We have the painting incarnation. We have the sound incarnation, the mantra of the Supreme Lord. So think now that we want to invite the Lord to appear in our home. The appearance of the Lord. The Narasingha Jayanti in my home. So you share this conception with your friends, your relatives, your parents, so that on their altar they can be Krishna conscious and they can be Narasingha conscious. Why would they want to be Narasingha conscious? Because he protects the Vaishnavas. Why did he protect Prahlad Maharaj? Why did he not protect somebody else? Someone asked me that question yesterday in Camp Krishna. There were so many rishis, that didn't get the mercy of the Lord. Why Prahlad got the mercy of the Lord? Prahlad got the mercy of the Lord because he offered seva. If we don't offer seva to the Lord, then he doesn't need to reciprocate with us. Yeyatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. As we do seva for him, he reciprocates with us. If we offer 0, he reciprocates 0. Is that fair? Is that logical? Krishna says so. Yeyatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. I reciprocate accordingly. You give 0, I give 0. You give 100%, I give 100%. So I was thinking, what is my 100%? I give 100% of my seva to Krishna, but it's only hardly anything. If I stop my 100%, there's no loss to Krishna. He won't even notice the difference. That's how insignificant my 100% is. But if I give my 100%, Krishna will reciprocate with his 100%, which is infinite. Is that a good deal for me? Is that a good deal? I offer hardly anything, my 100%, and he offers with his infinite 100%. Is that a good deal for me? That's the best deal you'll ever get. Nobody can ever offer you a better deal. And as Indians, you always want the best deal, right? So go for that deal. Invite Narasimhadev into your home and then do seva to him so he enters into your heart and he will protect you from all harm like he protected Prahlad Maharaj. And at the end of the life, you'll make sure that you go back home, back to Godhead. Because Krishna, he doesn't take care of these things. He's too busy doing Ras Leela and other Leelas in Goloka Vrindavan. He doesn't come to this world. He sends his avatars to do that on his behalf. You understand? Clear? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You can have a look at the book. There's a table out front. You can see all the different Archa Vigraha of Sri Narasimhadev. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki.